Hi, my name is Lisa, and I'm a Guild Certified Feldenkrais Practitioner, and I'm also a violinist. And I do a lot of public school workshops for orchestra programs, for string players, for other young musicians, working on injury prevention using Feldenkrais and adapted versions of the Feldenkrais Method. I'm here today to teach you a little different version of the Floss dance. In case you're maybe an adult who has a child who has tried to learn the Floss dance unsuccessfully, or you feel like you're gonna dislocate a hip or something while you're doing it, I'm gonna have a little bit more gentle way of getting into the Floss with you guys today. It made me start to think about teaching the Floss dance in some of my clinics and workshops for educators is that I've had some parent friends who have tried to learn the Floss dance after their kids and found that it was really difficult to sort of put all the steps together just by knowing what has to happen in the dance, that the hips and the arms have to go opposite each other, and knowing sort of a few layers like that. And it started to make me think about what it's like for children who are learning to play an instrument, or even adults who are learning to play an instrument, and how difficult it is for them to just take a set of instructions and do what's asked of them without enough exploration of some of the in-between steps that may be missing. And I like to think of learning as like a giant mosaic that's made of a bunch of tiny little pieces, and it has grout between all of those pieces. And once all of those pieces or more of the pieces of the mosaic that are put in, the clearer the picture becomes. And so what I like to do is really look with students, what's missing in those tiles? Where is the grout sort of not linking the pieces together? So this is not going to be the complete mosaic of the Floss dance move by any means, but I'm hoping that maybe for some of you it fills in a few more of the places and maybe even gives you some ideas for knowing yourself a little bit better. And even if you don't end up doing the Floss perfectly by the time we're finished, hopefully you have some ideas for moving more comfortably, or even sitting in a chair more comfortably, or even getting up from a chair, walking, running, whatever. So I'd like you to find a comfortable chair to sit in for a little while, and I recommend something without arms, and so I have this nice blue IKEA chair, which works really well. And I want something where my hips and my knees are going to be at close to the same level, or even my knees a little bit below where my hips are. And a firmer chair is probably better than something that's extra cushioned as well. And so once you find that chair, just come to sit at the front of the chair so that you feel that you are sitting on your sit bones and not on muscle, not on the muscles at the back of your thighs. And you can just sort of roll your pelvis a little bit forward and back to notice where your sit bones are. If it's not too uncomfortable, you could put a hand under your hip and see if you can feel where the bone is underneath. You can do that on one side. It might be, if it's a hard chair, it's probably a little tricky to put both hands underneath. You really squish your hands, but you can feel where your sit bones are, and just that little bit of contact with your hand will also help you just identify that contact with the chair. And now I want you to just sit for a moment and just feel how you bear your weight through your sit bones into the chair. And so just sit quietly for just a moment, and then notice if your weight is maybe a little bit more on the right sit bone or a little bit more on the left sit bone. And you might even notice, where is your head in relation to each sit bone? Is your head a little bit more over the right sit bone or a little bit more over the left sit bone? And just to make that a little bit more clear, just shift your head so that it actually moves over the right sit bone, and so you're actually shifting your weight onto the right sit bone. And then shift your head relatively close to center then, so coming off of that right sit bone, going to a more even weight on the distribution between the two sit bones. And then shift your weight so that your head head goes a little bit over the left sit bone. And then come back to the center. And just notice, do you feel like you're traveling a longer distance to go to one side? Or do you feel like you're kind of traveling uphill one way and downhill the other way? And do that a couple of times to each side. So shifting your weight onto the right sit bone and letting your head travel just a little bit over that sit bone. So you don't want to go all the way out to the side with your head, but just bringing your head over that sit bone and then back. And then to the left sit bone and back. Just feeling where it's a little easier, where there may be a little bit more resistance to that movement. And then stop and rest with your weight somewhere towards the middle between the two sit bones. Feel how you bear the weight into the sit bones and into the chair. And then put your left hand on the top of your head and just start to tilt your head a little bit to the left and then back up. Do it a few times and notice where your ribs come together. Do they come together more on the left side or the right side? Kind of start to feel, I think you'll probably notice that your ribs actually start to fold a bit like an accordion, and they come together actually as you tilt to the left. They come together on the left side, and they actually get a little bit wider on the right side as you do this movement. And then add to that movement a little bit of a rocking onto your right sit bone if that's not already happening. And notice how that actually increases that fold by a little bit, because your left sit bone will come a little bit closer to your left armpit. And then after doing that a couple of times, just rest your left hand and then put your right hand on top of your head and do something similar on the right side, and just feel what it's like then to fold those ribs together on the right as you tilt your right elbow down towards the floor. And also feel what's happening on the left side as the ribs come farther apart. And then add to that a little bit of a shifting onto the left sit bone if that's not already sort of automatically happening. And then rest your right arm. And then do an alternating movement, putting your right hand on your head and shifting onto the left sit bone as you tilt down to the right. And then as you move onto the right sit bone, bring your left hand onto your head and tilt down to the left. So you may notice that your whole spine starts to arch between your head and the middle of your pelvis. So you might imagine now that you would have a plumb line that would drop from your nose right down your center to the floor just below where you're sitting. So imagine that plumb line, and then start to have the idea that when you do this folding to the right and to the left, that your nose stays over that central spot. Now your head will, of course, tilt to the right and then to the left, but you're sort of maintaining that balance of your head over the center of yourself so that you're really asking your spine to curve into an arc shape in each direction. And then once you start to get the hang of that, just rest your hands in your lap and then do the motion without putting your hand on top of your head. So now you're just shifting from your right sit bone to your left sit bone, and you're allowing your spine to curve underneath, keeping that line between that plumb line between the nose and the floor directly under the middle of your pelvis. And then just rest and feel how your weight is carried into the chair now. If you like, you can get up and have a little walk around and come back. Feel free to pause and rest a little longer or explore emotion even more before going on. But I'm going to go ahead and continue to the next step of this. So take your time in between all of these steps. So now what I want you to do is turn to your right with your shoulders and your head. And I want you to put your left hand on the outside of your right knee and your right hand on the chair behind you. So you're in a little bit of a twist. But try to keep more or less your knees even in front of you, and you don't need to turn your feet. So you're actually twisting between your shoulders and your pelvis. So you're turned a little bit to the right. And just to make sure your head is nice and free, just turn your head a little bit back to the left without moving your arms, and then back. And do that a couple of times. And then in this position, in this twisted position, begin to shift your weight onto your right sit bone and then onto your left sit bone. And this will probably be a smaller movement than what you did before. But see if you can still ask for some movement in your spine and your ribs to let this happen. So try not to pull on anything with your arms. Don't pull on your leg, don't pull on the chair behind you. So you're just going to maintain this sort of twisted position as you shift your weight. And see if you can ask for a little bit of movement somewhere else in your body. You don't have to do that a lot. Just come back to the center after you've done that a few times. And then turn your body to the left, putting the right hand on the outside of the left knee, putting your left hand behind you on the chair, and then a couple of times in this position, turn your head a little bit back to the right, to the left again, back to the right, to the left. Just notice if you want to tighten in your jaw or stop your breathing. And try to do this with as much ease as possible. So now in this position, start to shift your weight onto your left sit bone and then to your right sit bone. And very slowly see what you can ask of your spine and your ribs, maybe in your collarbones, maybe in your neck. What would help you to do this movement freely without pulling on either of your arms? And then staying on that left side for a moment, just turn your head back to the center. So look in the center, and with your eyes facing forward in the same direction as your knees and your feet, also shift your weight between your right and your left sit bones. And just notice how that's different. And is it possible to kind of keep that idea of that plumb line between your nose and the floor, between your knees or underneath your pelvis, kind of in the middle? And then turn back to the left and do it a few more times there. If you wanted to add another little variation to that, you could also turn your eyes back to the center and shift your weight, but not turning your head. Or you could turn your head back to the center and turn your eyes to the left, shift your weight there. And when you're done with playing around with some of those variations, maybe those are the tiny little pieces of mosaic that allow you a little bit more movement between your feet and your head, a little more movement in your ribs, a little bit more movement in your neck. You can make little variations for yourself as you go. And then go back to the right and try a couple of these variations with your head. So maybe go back to the right and let your head face forward and shift your weight between your right and left sit bones with your head facing forward. And then try it a couple of times with your eyes looking to the right, but your head facing forward. Try it with your head turned to the right and your eyes turned to the left. You get the idea. You're going to do various combinations of that. And now just rest for about 5 seconds, 10 seconds. Just take a moment to feel where your weight is over your sit bones. And then shift your weight a little bit to the right and to the left and just notice what that's like. Is there a little bit more ease in that movement? Is it easier to keep your head more or less in the center, even though there may be a little bit of tilting going on, or maybe you even can keep that head straight and you find that tilting right underneath it at your occipital joint, maybe like right behind your nose. You'll start to feel that you can actually move your neck underneath your head. So this time, do get up and take a little walk around and just notice how your weight is over your feet. But we're going to do a couple of these kinds of variations in standing. So go ahead and stand up, and I actually want you to see more of the middle of my body, and you can certainly do this without even looking. In fact, it's probably better if you even just listen to the recording for most of the time, or you can even do some of it with your eyes closed if you like. But now, just with your feet about hip distance apart, try to make your feet more or less parallel, just so you have an idea of that sort of forwards orientation of your feet. And if that's not totally comfortable, that's okay. Maybe it even becomes a little more comfortable as we do this. But just shift your weight a little bit to the right and to the left foot now. And have this idea that not only your spine, but your whole body starts to curve left and right underneath your head. So now maybe there's a plumb line from your nose to the floor that goes between your feet. And immediately add to this idea of a little bit of extra bending from the top. So if you can reach your right arm up as you shift onto your right side, and then reach your left arm up as you shift onto the left side. And do that a couple of times, just so you start to increase that little side bending motion, which also actually starts to move your hips side to side. Make sure, again, that when you step onto the left foot, it's the left hand that you're reaching, and you step onto the right foot, it's the right hand that you're reaching. And you probably notice if you were to do the opposite of this, if you step onto the left foot and reach with the right hand, you're a little bit stuck. So the useful thing to know about reaching, that it's helpful in terms of expanding the ribs and getting as much length as you can on one side to shift onto the same side foot. Good, and then just to exaggerate the motion below, begin to slide your right arm down the side of your right leg, just like along your pant seam, as you shift onto the left foot. Just do that a few times. So shifting onto the left foot, sliding the right arm down the pant seam of your right leg. And then slide your left hand down your left leg along that pant seam as you shift onto the right foot. And then slide down one leg, shifting the opposite direction, slide down the other leg. Right arm down the pant seam when you put your weight on your left foot, and then left arm down the pant seam as you go onto the right foot. And then leave that sliding motion out of it. Just relax your hands, relax your arms, let your arms hang from your shoulders. And just shift your weight right and left and allow your hips to move a little bit to the side of the foot that is bearing the weight. And then start to kind of allow your knees to bend a little bit with this movement. So you shift your weight onto the right foot and the left knee bends a little bit. Shift your weight onto the left foot and the right knee bends a little bit. Great, and then have a little walk around. Just notice as you go along here, do you have any feeling of being more upright or being more grounded, or maybe having a lighter step on your feet, or being able to sort of roll through your feet a little bit better? Just notice what that's like for you. Maybe very different for each of you. And then come back to making your feet parallel to each other, more or less parallel to each other. And I want you to start to do something completely different from what we were just doing. I just want you to swing your arms a little bit to the left and to the right. So you can allow your elbows to bend if you like. Just see if you can sort of start to generate a momentum or a bit of a rhythm to this motion. And you don't have to think anything particular for right now about what's going on in your feet. Just find that momentum. And then you might want to change it up. You could slow it down. Maybe feel how the size of the gesture is different depending on how fast you're going. You could speed it up. You might notice where you propel your arms from. And then start to find a coordination in your shifting of your weight over your feet that allows you to get some momentum in your arms. So your arms can basically hang, but you're generating this motion from below. So for me, in order to start to think about generating this motion, my arms go to the right as I shift onto my right foot. My arms go to the left when I shift onto my left foot. So see how that is for you. Maybe it's the opposite. Now deliberately make your arms go to the right when you shift onto the right foot, and to the left when you shift onto the left foot, and keep allowing your knees to bend as we did before. And once you find sort of an easy rhythm there, start to reverse the motion of your arms. So now as you shift onto the right foot, let your arms go to the left, and the left foot let your arms go to the right. And see if you could actually generate a momentum that would also propel your arms in this direction. So you're looking for right, and then opposite, right foot, left arms, left foot, right arms. Back and forth. Letting your knees bend, keeping your feet forward, side to side. And can you find a rhythm that accompanies the momentum here? And then what happens if you slow it down? How does that change the amplitude? Or you speed it up? See how you can coordinate these. And this you could play with for a long time. And this is sort of the 2-beat part of the floss dance, that your arms and your legs are going to go in opposite directions. So you could even count to yourself 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Fantastic. And then coming back to standing with your feet parallel to each other. And now, instead of swinging your arms side to side, I want to add just a little bit of that twisting motion that we did a moment ago in the chair, but now we're going to do it a little bit freer. So we're going to just swing the arms to the right and to the left. You could think of your body sort of rotating clockwise and then counterclockwise, however you like to think of it. And then just let your arms swing, maybe wrap around you a little bit. Let your head be involved in this movement. And notice how, again, you can generate this movement of your arms from below or somewhere in the middle of yourself. Maybe you think of doing it from your feet, then you think of doing it from your pelvis. You could even think of doing it from just the turning of your head and your eyes, or even just turning your shoulders. And then can you do this movement with your head facing forward? And still generate that movement in your arms. And you can change the pulse, change the tempo of your movement as you go. Good, and then stop and just have a little walk around. You might find if this makes you just a little bit dizzy or something that you're gonna wanna do fewer repetitions and walk a little bit more frequently. And then come back to standing with your feet parallel. And start to have the idea that as you change, or as you rotate with your arms, I'm starting to get a little bit dizzy, that you could shift your weight on your feet as you do it. And notice when you rotate to the left side or counterclockwise, where does your weight go? For me, it goes onto my right foot. When I go to the right, my weight goes onto my left foot. Try both ways. So if that's what your habit is, then shift your weight onto the left foot as you rotate left, right foot as you rotate right, and onto the left foot as you rotate left. And you can try that turning your head or keeping your head in the middle. And now do the opposite. So shift your weight onto the left foot as you rotate right, and onto your right foot as you rotate left. I call these inside and outside turns with my students, and it's something that's really fun to do with bowing on the violin too. You can bow as you shift the weight. You'll notice a momentum that goes with the bow, with that turning in your thorax and even the turning in your pelvis. So I do all these kinds of variations with my students on the violin and viola as well. You can even do it on the cello and the bass if you have some good rotation and sitting. So now we're going to do a very deliberate rotation. So now we're actually going to go to what I call the inside turn, which is as you shift your weight onto the left foot, you're going to rotate right. And as you shift your weight onto the right foot, you're going to rotate left. So just do that movement a few times. And just feel how you might do that easily, and then start to look in the front. So look forward as you rotate both directions. Make sure you're allowing your knees to bend. And then have a little walk around. Come back to sitting in the chair, because the rotation adds sort of an interesting element. So one of the things about the floss is that it's in kind of 2 meters at the same time. It's in 3, 4, and 6/8. So there's a subdivision of 3 that goes with the rotation and the side turning, and there's a subdivision of 2 that goes with the pelvis and the arms going in opposite direction. So just to simplify things, we're gonna do this step that's in the actual 6/8, which is how I like to think of the floss, in sitting. So just to simplify, go back to putting your right hand on the chair behind you and your left hand on the outside of your right knee. And a couple of times just shift your weight onto the right sit bone and onto the left. And maybe even notice that that has changed for you. Is it a little bit smoother? Is it a little bit easier to do without sort of having a lot of pulling going on in your arms? And then go to the other side, put your right hand on the outside of your left knee and your left hand behind you, and shift a little bit between your sit bones. And then we're going to actually create a bit of a sequence out of this. So the starting position is turn to the right with your left hand on the outside of your right knee and your right hand behind you, and your weight is on your left sit bone. So find that to begin with, and that is sort of our 0 point, or our 6 count. And what we're going to do is we're going to shift right, left, and then right and turn at the same time. And then we're going to shift left, right, left, and turn at the same time. So you have 3 little bumps on one side, and the last one includes a turn, and then 3 on the other. So if I think right as 1, left as 2, right and turn as 3, left is 4, right is 5, left and turn is 6. So I'm going to say interchangeably the numbers and the side. So you're facing right, your weight is on your left sit bone, and you're going to go right, left, right and turn. And then left, right, left and turn. A little bit more smoothly, I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that last one got a little jumbled, but let me now say it in terms of right, left, right. So you're on your left sit bone, you're turned to the right, your right hand's behind you, your left hand's on the outside of the right knee. And when you turn, of course, you're going to absolutely reverse the arms as we've been doing. So we have right, left, turn, left, right, turn, right, left, turn, left, right, turn. So you can play with that as much as you like until you sort of feel comfortable with the pulse of that. You can also go much slower. I'm going to put it together a little bit slower in standing. So go ahead and come to stand up, maybe walk around a few steps. I'm going to move the chair out of the way. Make your feet more or less parallel. Just get a little bit of that feeling of shifting your weight and bending your knees as you shift your weight. Try a few movements of the arms going in the opposite direction of the knees or of your legs. And then turn a little bit to face the right. If you want to make your head face to the right to begin with, maybe it's a little easier to start out. And shift your weight onto the left foot and bring your arms forward and make your arms into kind of soft fists, just really soft fists. So you don't need to squeeze your hands for this. But I want you to begin now shifting your weight onto the right foot as your arms swing back. Now that means your right arm is going to swing behind you and your left arm is going to swing in front of you. And then step onto the left foot as your arms swing forward. So arms back onto the right foot, arms forward onto the left foot. And just practice that movement a few times. You can make it small. You can make it slow. You can make it big and slow. You can make it small and fast. And you can rest in the middle. And then turn to the left and do something similar. So shift your weight onto your right foot. Turn a little bit to the left. Bring your arms out in front of you into some soft fists. And shift your weight onto the left foot as your arms go back with the left hand going behind your butt. And then shift your weight onto the right foot as your arms go forward. And do this sort of alternating shifting. And don't forget, it's probably helpful to bend your knees. That gives you a little bit of extra curve between your head and the floor. And you can try different speeds. You could do it really fast and small. You can do it a little bit larger and slowly. I don't recommend large and fast. That might be a little violent. So do that a few times on each side and just have that idea of arms and feet going opposite. And remember that when you turn to the other side, you're going to be on the opposite foot. So when you turn left, your weight goes onto the right foot. Do it on the other side. You can do it kind of light and quick, small. You can turn to the other direction, do it small on one side, small on the other. All right, have a little walk around. We'll put together the floss. When you are ready to come back, stand with your feet parallel to each other, and then turn as you shift your weight turn to the right as you shift your weight onto the left foot. Bring your arms out in front of you, hands into soft fists. So remember that the arms and the legs are always going to be opposite each other. So I'm going to say this in terms of the legs because I think it's easier to generate this movement from the legs. So we're going to do in the legs and the hips. So we're going to go right, left, turn. Left, right, turn. 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 That's the basic movement of the floss. I'm going to say it in numbers just so those of you who like to sort of count, you're going to count to 6. This is a 6 count series. There's going to be a 1, 2, turn, 4, 5, turn. Okay? So 3 and 6 are on the turn. So this is that 6-8 pattern, even though your arms and your hips are going back and forth in 2. So we have turn to the right, weight on the left foot, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There you go. That's the floss. So you can practice it with your head facing forward if you like. So you can shift your weight onto the left foot. You can turn to the right, but you can look forward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,